This episode of SpectreSoundStudios is brought to you by Lancaster Audio. Get the world's best impulse responses and Kemper profiles at lancasteraudio.com. Hey everybody, how's it going? Welcome to SMG Viewers Comments. It is Friday. Hope you're going to have an amazing weekend. As you can see, I'm back in the Hollywood studio. Did the Christmas thing, did the funeral thing. Yeah, that was lots of fun. Anyway, I am absolutely thrilled to be back here in Los Angeles. Looking forward to this weekend. Let's get right to it.
This was a question I have wanted to ask for years. The answer, though, brought up another question. Why do amps have a direct out if it is not useful? What is the point of a direct out?
Hey, Big Dave, thanks for writing. Thanks for asking that. Dave is referencing the why do I need to mic a speaker video I did there a couple weeks ago. If you haven't watched that, please do. It definitely fills in the blanks if you're a new guy to recording metal guitars. So, if we need to mic a cabinet, yeah, that's a very good question. Why do we have a direct out then if it sounds like shit? Well, the direct out is for probably daisy chaining amps. Let's say you have like a 5150 over here. It's got a direct out. Let's say you want to run a couple more cabinets. You can run a separate power section and just run the preamp off the 5150, and that'll go to your power section. You can power more amps that way. You can use it for direct out recording. You can use it for a cabinet IR. That's probably the most practical thing. There's really no end to the ways you can use that direct out. You just have to get a little creative and filter it effectively, and IRs are definitely the one way to how to do that.
I'm wanting to start a band with my friends, and one of my friends is good at drums. But ever since he started dating this girl, we never see him anymore.
Oh, man, that has been the downfall of many, many, many bands throughout the years. Believe me, this is nothing new. In Windsor, we call that VPP syndrome. Victim to the power of the pussy. And just to be clear, I'm not picking on women in general. I'm picking on men who can't get their priorities sorted. That's what I'm picking on. A lot of guys get into bands to basically meet girls, and once they meet girls and that goal has been achieved, then the band becomes less of a priority and getting laid becomes the ultimate priority for them. And this has been a situation where relationships definitely interfere with bands. We've seen it numerous times happen many different ways. Girlfriends get jealous that guys are in bands and they're not being paid attention to. But I mean, like, you know, I was just reading Adele's biography there the other day, and she gave up a tour or some major commitments or something like that so she could be with her boyfriend, and that didn't work, and she went and wrote after that. So it's not just what happens to guys, it's everybody across, you know, the whole human species. It's like relationships are a huge focus, so that can be a major distraction. So congratulations to your buddy for, you know, getting himself a relationship. But yeah, you're probably never going to see him again.
Glenn, line output from amp sounds similar to speaker out from load box. Can you put line out into an IR?
That's going back to the first question. They're very much related. Yes, you can definitely put a line output from an amp onto an IR. That is absolutely fine. It's very similar to a load box. The load box, a reactive load box, will act more like a speaker though and push back against the amp. The amp will react a little bit better. You have to have a load or a speaker attached to the amp, or you could damage your amp because you can't work with it silently unless the amp has something pushing back against it, a resistance or a reactive load in this case.
Hey Glenn, what's your opinion on the shitstorm that Arch Enemy started? I personally believe it's some sort of an artistic seppuku, considering how photographers make your content pop so much easier and quicker, plus usually they're easy and fun to work with. Working for fucking exposure, for real.
Yes, you're referencing what happened there where a photographer saw one of his photos being used to sell clothing and he didn't get paid for it, and Arch Enemy basically banned him from going to their shows or working with them ever again. The thing is, the guy has some kind of background in law as well. Yeah, I think Arch Enemy handled that quite poorly. I don't know what in the hell they were thinking. Basically, you know, the guy accepts that his photos are going to get shared around. That's part of being a photographer, but it's going to be used for commercial use. Then yeah, he probably should be compensated. A lot of the guys I work with on the show here, it's like most of the videos don't really wind up making very much. So I do try and make sure they're compensated in terms of gear one way or another. Extra stuff I've got lying around if I can help them out, that sort of thing. I do try and make sure that the people who help out on the show are compensated in one way or another. And I mean, Arch Enemy should really consider that. If there's a photographer that's working for them and they're going to use the photo, yeah, they probably should compensate him. Considering the fact he said he'd be happy if they made a donation to a cancer society, and they even told him no at that. Yeah, that's really not looking too good for Arch Enemy at the moment. I think they should probably talk to a publicist and a PR agency, and probably might want to backpedal on that and rethink that whole situation, especially who handles their PR, because it's not working out so well for them right now. That being said, I mean, I remember I was shooting a few years ago for Girls of Guitar World, and I was looking at working with another online magazine about doing some photography for them, and they basically said, "Oh well, if your stuff's good enough, we'll put it in our magazine, but we're not going to pay you." And I'm like, "Are you out of your fucking minds?" The insane thing is there's so many photographers out there desperate for work that they'll do that because they're willing to work for exposure, and that just plain sucks.
Even though I've never liked Machine Head, I popped on Burn My Eyes after your yak, and damn, there is a rather large guitar tone. The 5150 is on more of my favorite recordings, hands down, than any I know of. Probably even more than any Mazer rec. Clayman being a prime example of one of my favorite mixes ever, though, and I'd really like your input on this, the compression thrown on the master nearly ruins it. That should be a lesson in mastering like Death Magnetic, and it has obviously affected the master in a way I don't see as good, and it's noticeable. Which I guess is an interesting question, or maybe philosophy. Do you see that as part of the art and science of mastering? Not noticing it. If that makes sense, thanks, Len. Hope to hear from you, Barney Cockburn. Yes, that's my real name.
Well, Barney, somebody should have told your grandfather not to wash his dick in bleach. Probably have a different last name. Anyway, yeah, good couple of insights there. Yes, I've said this before, the greenback is a wonderful alternative to the Celestion Vintage 30. I'm also hearing a lot of good things about the creambacks. I haven't tried them yet, and I definitely want to check that out. There's definitely nothing wrong with branching out and trying a few different things. The WGS Veteran 30 is a great alternative to the Vintage 30 as well. It's a little darker sounding. They're mounted in the rev cabs, and they're absolutely phenomenal. As for your over-mastering question, the great thing about YouTube is it's kind of killed the volume wars in a lot of ways, because YouTube, if your mixes just has a too much overall volume, it'll just turn everything down, and I think that's absolutely fantastic. It's definitely forced me to back things off huge when I'm doing stuff. You can check out my one of my premium tutorials, mixing math rock or producing prog metal, and you can see how I kind of approach the mastering. It's a very simple method that I've been using since about 2007, I think. That was the first record I did it on, and I haven't looked back ever since. And it really, at this point, it's pretty much an afterthought. It's just how the way how I work. And yeah, basically I keep the levels down and keep everything at about -10 dBFS, if that's the appropriate measurement. I don't have the chart in front of me at the moment. But that's what I mix for, is like a -10 level instead of like a -6 or something like that. So everything's just got that much more transient impact. And I think that's fantastic. So in many ways, YouTube has been a great thing for audio. It's long overdue. Okay, so last week I asked you guys to submit some questions on video because I want to mix it up. We're like 180 episodes in, and you know what? I thought it might be kind of cool to put some of you guys on the show. So first up is Joseph Craig with this.
Hi Glenn, sorry for the shitty camera, but what's better for mixing? These headphones? Or some shitty desktop speakers? Also, can you do a review of the AKG P120? It's a great budget mic.
Fantastic question. In your situation, I'd say use both. The problem with mixing on headphones is you get left and right, but you don't get center. So it's very hard to tell where everything's placed, and you know, they might not be very flat or frequency balanced, so to speak. So it's really easy to make mistakes with them. That being said, there is new software out from SonarWorks that will help you tune your headphones to make things much more flat and easier to work with. I'm going to be doing a demo on the SonarWorks stuff very soon, so stay tuned for that. Mix on your phones, but check that mix on your shitty desktop speakers. And if it's possible, try taking your shitty desktop speakers out of the room you're in and try listening to it in different places throughout your house so you can hear what else is going on. You'd be surprised what getting out of your mix position can do for unveiling the mysteries of what's going on in your mix. Good luck, Joseph. Thanks so much for sending us a video.
Hey Glenn, Rick here. Really love all the work you do, and I've learned a lot from your tutorials. So what you always say is we shouldn't mix on headphones because they don't give us the full picture. So could you do a mix on both headphones and your monitors so that we can hear the differences? And also, what would you suggest? Mixing on headphones or mixing on monitors in a bad, untreated room? Cheers from India. Have a nice day.
All right, fantastic question. I'm sensing a bit of a theme here. You know what? I'm going to make that a poll this week is how many of you guys are mixing on headphones? I'm going to make it like a yes-no thing. Of course, the results from last week's poll, who is the greatest bass player ever, came up, and the winner is clearly Steve Harris. Thanks to all the bass players for chiming in on that one and letting us know who your favorite is. Anyway, back to the original question. Rick from India. Mixing on headphones or an untreated room. Again, the SonarWorks thing, if all you have is headphones, is probably a pretty decent solution. It's really not too difficult to treat a room. You can stack towels in your corners or go to, well, I don't know what the situation would be in India, but go to like a second-hand shop and just buy a bag of old clothes or something like that and jam them in the corners just to kind of absorb some of the bass buildup. Like I said, it is not difficult to treat a room at all. All you have to do is be slightly creative. I am going to do an episode on home studio acoustic hacks to show you guys how you can treat a room without marking it up, especially if you're in a rental situation where you can't do any permanent modifications. As for your other question, can I do a mix with headphones versus monitors? Yes, I think that's a magnificent question, and I think that would be a really great episode to do, especially because we've got some absolutely killer Genlex back here. I should do that versus, mixing on, say, a cheap set of AKGs, which have been my go-to for I don't know how long. These are like the K77s, and yeah, they're nothing spectacular at all, but they're reliable, and I like that. By the way, if I haven't said it enough times, I love hearing from the whole India metal crowd. You guys have some really cool stuff going on. Bloody Wood blew me away. I thought that was great. And I think that's fantastic that there's like this whole raging metal scene going on in India. I think that's just absolutely brilliant. And honestly, one of my bucket list things would be to come to India and go make a record with one of your bands. I think that'd be awesome. Anyway, keep those questions coming, especially the video ones. I'm really digging those. Next.
Hey, I got myself a zombie after your recommendation. Thanks so much. But one question still goes unanswered. How well does it take pedals like the G3, etc.? Also, is there any sound difference between a vertical and horizontal 2x12 cab sound-wise? Much love from Sweden, and as always, fuck you, Glenn.
Hey, Kim, thanks for writing in. Always happy to hear from everybody from Sweden. Love that country. Another place I'd really like to go one of these days. I'm not really sure about pedals into the Zombie, as I'm not much of a pedal guy. I imagine you could set it up for as clean as possible and run a Rev G3 into it, and it'd probably open up, a bit of a different tone palette for you. But I do think the tube in there is for distortion generation, and it's a solid state power section, so I don't know. You know what? I think the distortion channel on the Zombie sounds pretty freaking wicked, so it might be a case of being slightly redundant. So proceed with caution. As for a sound difference between a vertical or horizontal 2x12, I really can't think of any. I mean, you could just take a 2x12 and put it on its side, you'll get the exact same effect. The great thing about a 2x12 though is, they're easier to mount up high so you can actually hear them when you're playing. So, and they are lighter and there's less crap to haul, so definitely a viable option. I wouldn't worry too much about the vertical versus horizontal thing. As I always say, don't overthink it.
What will happen to the musicians who regularly show up to your studio? For example, TJ, once if you move to LA. Will they still be on the show, or will you have to find other musicians to help out?
Well, first off, TJ quit last spring. I know he was on an episode there a while back. It was actually an older clip I had, which kind of worked with what we were doing, so I used it. And a lot of people are like, oh, TJ's back now. TJ's, as far as I know, has completely quit playing drums. So I doubt he's going to be back on the show anytime soon. But, you know, hey, door's always open if he does want to play. But I'm knowing going to be back and forth to Canada quite a bit over the next couple of years. So I'm sure we'll be seeing appearances from Wisnuck and Rafinsky on a regular basis. And on the other hand, I'm definitely looking forward to working with some guys on the LA metal scene here. I think it should be a lot of fun, and we're definitely going to have some very interesting guests on the show. So stay tuned for that, because I know you guys are absolutely going to love what's coming up.
Hey Glenn, as a bassist who does a lot of recording in a small apartment, would a load box be a reasonable and effective investment for someone like me? Currently, I just use one or a combination of the two dark glass pedals that I have on my live rig. Would there be enough improvement in the sound to warrant buying, say, a Torpedo Live? So I was just curious, as I can't really, find any load box demo videos on YouTube right now. Good luck and best wishes in the new year, man.
Wow, isn't that amazing? I think we managed to find a bass player who can construct a complete sentence and is sober. Wow, well, miracles never cease. Seriously though, Tim, thanks so much for the question. I think that's great. The one question I'd have to you would be, are you running a tube bass amp? And if the answer is no, then you definitely will not need a load box. I mean, I just don't really see the point. I mean, the dark glass pedals are fantastic. I use them all the time. You're definitely going to get great results with that. The dark glass amp is magnificent too, but the whole point behind that is miking up an actual cab. So I don't know. I've never actually encountered that situation. I know Lancaster is going to be offering some IRs of the dark glass cabinet very soon. Do you actually need the saturation of an amplifier's power section? I really don't know. That is a damn fine question. I think it would be a little redundant given the setup you've got. Direct recording bass has been a mainstay for many, many, many years. I'm of the philosophy you either go direct or go mic up a cab, but getting a load box I think would be kind of pointless in your situation. You'd be probably better served by changing your strings every now and then and learning the songs. So good for you, dude. Keep trying.
What do you recommend using to organize cables in the studio, like racks?
Well, there's a few things we use around here. Okay, first off, we use cable straps. That just keeps everything clean, so when you grab a cable, you're not grabbing 7 others along with it. In the studio we've got a system where we have these long hooks come out, and that works really well. You can go to a hardware store and buy stuff like that, where you just get, some pegboard, and you get some long hooks come out, and you should be able to organize your cables without any problem whatsoever. But get the cable ties first, the little Velcro straps. Those will definitely make your life a whole lot easier. Oh yeah, before I forget, this episode has been brought to you by Lancaster Audio. That's the company I'm involved in. It's a partnership between myself, Warren Hewitt from Produce Like a Pro, and the Rosen Digital guys. So all you guys who have the Rosen Digital IR packs, those have been rebranded under Lancaster, but the new producer packs that have come out from myself, Ulrich Wild, Cameron Webb, and Bob Marlette, those are all brand new. Warren's got a new pack out, and so does Trey Xavier. I'm really looking forward to doing some videos with Ulrich Wild and showing off his packs, because Ulrich did Pantera, Deftones, Static X, and Deathclock. So there's really some cool metal stuff there. And of course, Cameron Webb did like the last 6 Motorhead records. So these guys definitely know what it's all about when it comes to getting awesome metal guitar sounds. That being said, for everybody who's signed up or is even remotely interested in Lancaster, and this is kind of a gift to you guys and my subscribers and everybody who watches the show, I'm going to be giving away one of my IRs from my producer pack for you guys. It's going to be the Rev Cab on the Veteran 30 in a Fredman configuration. That's going to be free for you guys to grab. There'll be a link in the description below. That's kind of my Happy New Year present to all you guys for supporting the show and just being generally awesome fucking people. I can't thank you guys enough for supporting the show. You guys are fucking amazing, and I really hope you're going to like what's coming up in 2019.
Welcome to Los Angeles. 1. Mountain Dew has a fuck ton of caffeine here, unlike the Canadian version. Not saying to avoid it, just be prepared. 2. No, we don't have ketchup-flavored potato chips here. Please stop asking. You may be able to find all dressed, but we call it earthquake flavor. Imagine a big earthquake mixing all the spices together. 3. LA is a beautiful place except for all the people.
Well, thanks very much, Mel. I really appreciate that. Yeah, I'm not a big pop guy. Actually, I've told myself I'm going to swear off sugar for like the next 90 days and see what happens. My good friend Richard Mazza did that, and he dropped a ton of weight. So I'm going to see how it goes if I just cut sugar out of my diet completely. When I quit smoking, I really got into coffee. And so there was a lot of weight gain with that because I'd always drink it with real sugar. So I'm switching over to a sugar substitute and gonna see what that happens. But I'm also switching over, instead of, drinking 5 to 7 cups of coffee a day, maybe 1 cup of coffee and then green tea for the rest of the time. So we'll see how that goes. Anyway, thanks so much for the insights. Yeah, LA is absolutely beautiful. California is beautiful. Absolutely thrilled to be here. And thanks again for the greeting. Oh yeah, and I really don't like ketchup potato chips anyway, so no big deal.
Glenn, I've been thinking about opening a small recording studio to do demos. There are plenty of legitimate studios in the area, but most of the musicians I've talked to can't afford to record there. Do you think there would be any opportunity in quick and dirty demos using amp sims and e-drums? Any advice would be appreciated. Cheers from San Diego, California.
Hey Marcus, great question. The easy answer would be careful. What you're going to be offering is probably what a lot of people already have in their home studios. The great thing about modern recording technology is it's opened it up to a lot of people. The reason why studios are still in business is because they can offer something that somebody can't get in their bedroom. So if you're going to be offering the same thing that most bands already have, chances are they're not going to pay you for the privilege of doing the same thing they can do themselves. So all I can say is don't expect to make a lot of money, especially if you're planning on recording bands that aren't going to be working in the bigger studios anyway. So it's really kind of like a race to the bottom thing at this point. So please be cautious. You might be better served to be recording your own stuff. The other side of that coin is if the bands don't have their own recording space or don't want to go through the hassle and you can find yourself a niche there, then absolutely, man, go for it, and I wish you the absolute best of luck.
Hey Glenn, fuck your ass right here in Dallas, Texas. So I've been eyeballing the 11 rack from Pro Tools compared to the much more expensive Kemper or Helix or XFX. I can't afford those right now. In your professional opinion, does that unit do just as well as an alternative for its use for recording and live purposes? Or is it no different than, oh, dare I show this right now?
Wow, you guys are just killing it with your great questions today. Hopefully you guys are finding all this useful. Now, I did get a chance to play with the 11 rack a while back, and although I thought the sounds were pretty decent, the problem I have with the 11 rack is the design of the interface. It's fucking terrible. You have to jump through so many hoops to get it to do anything. They really don't understand the whole concept of workflow with the fucking thing. It's like the guy who must have programmed that isn't a guitar player because it just doesn't fucking make any sense. The amount of twisting and turning and crap you gotta do. So the alternative would be maybe take a look at the Headrush, which is based on 11 rack technology, but with an interface that's all touch sensitive and drag and drop, and it's really easy to work with. I know with the Headrush you can turn off the internal IRs and use some external ones, like say the ones from Lancaster, so that's a big plus as well. The other thing to take a look at if you can't afford a full-blown Helix is maybe look at, I think it's the LT. I was over at Trey Xavier from Gear God's place the other day, and he had a smaller version of the Helix, and it seemed to be much more affordable. I don't know if you're digging or not, but the other thing would be to take a look at the Helix software, which is fucking outstanding. Now, you guys know I've ragged on Line 6 for their practice amps for the longest time, but I did try the Helix out, and that is very impressive, the capabilities for what it can do. And the fact that you can load up your own custom IRs right into it is phenomenal. So big thumbs up on the Helix. So I'd say take a look at the cheaper version. I'll put some links in the description below. You can try that out. If you guys have any suggestions for alternatives to the 11 rack that don't cost an arm and a leg, believe me, I am all ears. Let's hear from you.
Hi Glenn, what's your thoughts on 80s rack guitar gear? Is Tesla, Fleck, Valley, Arts, etc.? Thanks for the awesome videos. Fuck you, Glenn.
I have no idea what a Tesla Flex Valley Arts is, but whatever. 80s guitar gear. You know, there was some really cool rack stuff that came out in the 80s and some not so great stuff. I remember trying the Korg A3 when that first came out, and I think it was 88. That was a pretty cool piece of gear. It was, you know, pretty early digitally though, so it had a lot of pick noise, that kind of thing. I love the old Rockman stuff. I would love to get my hands on a Rockman Sustainer and do a demo on something like that, or even one of the original Rockman units, because they were fucking badass and wound up on a lot of different records. They've kind of fallen out of flavor for whatever reason, so you guys out there looking for a unique tone, maybe go look for an old Rockman unit. Yeah, that'd be cool. I remember Tube Tech had like the Tube mic pre's were really cool, and the ADA MP1, I think I really want to get my hands on one of those and demo that. Great old tube gear that probably doesn't cost too much on the used market if you can find one. Yeah, there's some real hidden gems. I used to have like an old Ibanez multi-effector. It had like a compressor overdrive, chorus and flange. It was like a double rack space unit with a little remote thing. I remember I paid a couple $100 for it that I found on a pawn shop, and I just love that thing to death. Very, very cool stuff. Yeah, so there are definitely some hidden gems worth checking out, that is for sure.
Hey Glenn, greetings from Pueblo, Colorado. I don't have as much of a question as more of a suggestion or asking if you could do something. I like to use triggers. I know you don't, and I know you're an open-minded individual as well. So I wanted to see if you could give us any content with triggers, whether it be reviews, this or that, and how you would use them in the studio if you did use them. Fuck you, Glenn. Thank you very much for having me on your channel, and you're awesome.
Hey, Andrew, thanks so much for sending your video. Nice Pokemon hat, by the way. I suggest, you know, more Death Note. But anyway, yes, I would love to check that out, actually. We're in the process later today. Alex from Gear Gods is coming, and we're going to be setting up a drum set in here and just kind of getting things ready to go. I would love to do some work with triggers and show you guys how I would approach it. First and foremost, I like triggers for gates. They're very, very effective for cleaning up a snare track and just going with the mic sound. I've never really liked blending samples, but I suppose I should really do a couple videos on that because I know that's a very popular technique. I just always kind of felt like I was cheating the band when I wound up using samples, but then again, you know, things do change. So I definitely can't say no to ever trying that stuff out. That being said, I've had a set of D-drum triggers for years and years and years that are just absolutely dead. We've just destroyed them, and they do need to get replaced. I hear the Roland triggers are quite good. I'm very curious, how many of you guys are using triggers at home, and what brand are you using? Because I'm looking for something with a little bit more longevity. Like I said, I have the nice steel D-drum ones, but they're just toast.
What if I have amp and cabinet simulation in my multi-effect pedal? Should I mic the amp anyway?
That's a good fucking question. If you're gonna record directly off the pedal, probably not. But if you want to record off your amp, yes, then you should mic it. Just remember to shut the cabinet simulation off if you're sending that sound to an amp. Otherwise, you're gonna get like a double speaker effect, and that's just not gonna sound good. You're gonna be sending a simulated speaker to an actual speaker, and that just sounds like crap. So if you're using any real amp, double check and make sure that stuff is turned off, because it's going to sound a whole lot better.
One more question about starting on a YouTube. How should a performer promote himself online properly, especially for those who work inside crossover genre like metal and pop, or modern and vintage, or western and eastern, etc.? In my humble opinion, this is the biggest problem for beginners: where to put your product. And I think that you could give great advice about that, Glenn.
Oh, damn. You know, I've been at this for 4 years, and I'm still trying to figure out what category to put my stuff in. Is it comedy? Is it education? Yeah, is it music? Because, you know, it's like you look at YouTube music, and it's definitely not what's going on here on this show. So, fucked if I know. That would be my suggestion. Maybe just put it out there in a couple different genres and see what happens. Make sure you're cross-posting, though, on Facebook, Instagram, and Snapchat. You want to reach the maximum amount of people. Even Twitter is still a thing, I think. I don't know, I don't use it all that much, but just put yourself out there on as many platforms as you can, and hopefully somewhere it will gain some traction.
Metal is sounding generic because people in my generation refuse to do their own take on their influences and decide to sound exactly like their influences. Metalcore bands are notorious of doing that.
Hey, Chet, I fear you might have a point. I remember even in the 90s, there was an article in some metal press. I can't remember what magazine it was, but they were saying, the problem with death metal was that all these death metal bands were just citing all these other death metal bands as their influences. So, yeah, maybe work outside the genres and whatnot and try and push yourself forward. That's why I'm digging bands from India and Japan and that sort of thing, because it really doesn't sound westernized. So I'd say to the bands out there striving for your own sound, maybe broaden your horizons, start listening to other bands from around the world and see what you can derive from that and see what you can be influenced by. There's nothing wrong with metalcore per se, but if you're in a metalcore band and you're citing other metalcore bands as your direct influences, might be time to think about broadening the spectrum just a little bit. All right, that's it for this episode. Thank you so much for watching. Hopefully you got something useful out of it. Don't forget, I've got that free impulse response download from Lancaster Audio, and it's just my way of saying thank you so much for being fucking awesome. Until next time, I wish you guys the best of luck in your recording endeavors. Hopefully it goes well for you. Hope you have a magnificent weekend. I'm fucking out of here. Hey guys, if you liked the video, be sure to subscribe as I post every Wednesday, Friday, and Sunday. If you want to learn more about recording, check out one of my tutorials or one of my gear reviews if you want the actual honest truth about a piece of equipment. Till next time, stay metal, my friends.